Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, and today I have with me the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young. How's it going, Tom?
It's going good.
Wonderful. And the search engine optimization guru, Dennis McCarthy.
Hey, Glenn.
Yeah, you like that intro, don't you?
I guess.
Yeah, but it's true.
Never thought I'd become that.
Well, folks, in today's podcast, we're actually going to talk about the four-step process that Intuitive Websites has as far as web strategy is concerned. One is web strategy. The second is design and development. The third is traffic, and the fourth is performance and conversions. For this podcast today, we're going to talk about strategy and design and development, the first two. So let's start with strategy. Tom, let's talk a little bit about what people should be looking at.
Well, it's important to think about these four steps. And in fact, throughout this podcast, we've talked about strategy, and we've talked about all these different components. And what's happened over the last couple months is we've really integrated all these components you've heard in these podcasts into really four major categories. And you just mentioned those categories, and we'll start with strategy. And really, the first step in talking about strategy on the web is something most people don't think about, and that is, do you understand what it takes to market online? You really can't develop a strategy to market on the web unless you understand the basics. So we highly recommend that if you're going to jump into this area of internet marketing, get an understanding of how it all works. And in fact, our website is attempting to accomplish that goal, because once you're educated, then you can begin the process of developing a strategy, which is our first step.
Now, you would consider as part of strategy as more of a web marketing plan.
Absolutely. Defining what is the purpose of the website. Why is the website up there? And defining clearly what is not the purpose of the website. And many websites are really just thrown on there. They're online brochures. People put them on the web because they have to get something up. Their competitors are up there. Or they make an attempt at getting a website up and it becomes very frustrating, so they just throw it together and get it out there. Hear that all the time in middle-sized companies. What step one requires you to do is to stop that process and take a step back and say, we want our website to generate leads for our sales force. We want our website to close e-commerce sales. Or we want our website to brand our business and separate us from our competitors. We want our website to have tons of resources. And by having those resources, then it'll convert into sales leads or into purchases of our products.
Now, can somebody have a site that incorporates all of those and it be a great site?
That's right. And those are all strategies. And you can have multiple strategies, sure.
All in one site. You can have all those strategies. Okay.
That's right. And the key thing is to identify who is going to be on the website and what is going to be important to them. And it sounds like, well, of course we're going to do that. It's common sense. But it's not common sense. It doesn't happen on the web. That's why you have so many frustrated web users. So these are the steps in outlining that strategy. Once you have an idea of who that target market is, then begin some processes of talking to them and gathering market research. If you have a current site, which is most companies do, and when they look at this four-step process, they're going to be making changes, right? Well, go and do some user testing. Do user testing on the current site. Find the major issues that people want solved, the major problems that they have, and then begin the process of integrating that into your strategy, the findings from your research. So instead of sitting around a room with 3 or 4 people and doing guesswork, what should be on the website, go out to your target market. They'll tell you very clearly what they want to see on their website.
What would you see? How many people do you think actually do user testing?
Oh gosh, it's so small that it's less than 1% of 1% probably.
They don't even show it to their wife.
Most websites are created in a vacuum. I've talked about this before, which is a handful of people literally make decisions for something that's going to be seen by thousands of people, and something that's going to have a huge impact on the branding of their business.
Thousands of people per day, literally.
Could be thousands of people per day. So you have to get the site out there and do the market research. You've got to analyze your competition and find best practices. You need to do research on the search engines, because search engine traffic is a great indicator of what your strategy should be, who you should target, what people are going to look for when they come on your site based on the keywords that they put in.
And really the keyword focus is a number right up there with strategy. Once you know who your target market is, you know the purpose and the function of the website from a big picture understanding, keywords are the very next step, and they really drive all of your search engine optimization.
Absolutely.
And we'll get into more of that in the next podcast.
Absolutely. But it's important to realize in the strategy step that you do this search engine work before you even design your site, before you even build the site, because the search engines give you a picture of what the site is going to start to look like, because you get a sense of, oh, that's the keyword, that we're going to target. That's a keyword that's popular, or that's a targeted word for us, and we're going to build a site around those key phrases.
Okay. Now, what about as far as any other types of research? Should a client or should I say a company should be doing anything else? Should they be doing any other research aside from what we've already mentioned?
Yeah, well, we look at basically a handful of different types of research, and there are certainly companies out there that can do this for you. User testing in a simplest form, just putting someone on your website and asking them to give you feedback. Telephone surveys, where you ask them to go to the website when you're on the phone with them and say, please give us some feedback. You can go to the extent of focus groups and bringing a group of people together and showing them the website. Another option might be to actually do some online surveying on your site and try to get some feedback that way. We find really the best way, though, is to do even an informal user testing session where you bring someone in, have them navigate through the website.
How many people should be in one of those user testings?
That's a great question. We found that not that many. And this is counterintuitive, because I've talked to a lot of clients out there that are feeling like, you need like 20, 30, 40 people, right? Or maybe hundreds of people, right? Well, it's not true. In about 5 to 7 sessions, you'll get 80 to 90% of your key areas covered. And you'll see it immediately. Within the 2 or 3 sessions, people will say the same things over and over. Well, I wish I could find your phone number, or I wish I had directions, or no, I can't find the link to go and book now or buy now. And you'll see it immediately that those are the big issues. And just a handful of users will give you that data.
Now, once you have all of that information, the next step obviously is design and development, is
Right.
to go on to the next step and figure it out. Now,
Well, prior to that, part of the strategy that we like to look at whenever we take on a new client, we find out that they really don't have a good handle on how users behave on the site and how users are getting to the site. They don't have good analytics in place. And a lot of people will say, oh, we use XYZ package. It's attached to our hosting plan and it works great. And we take one look at it and we see that it doesn't work great at all. Currently, the granddaddy of analytics packages is Google Analytics, and it's free. And you can attach it to your website by putting a little script on each page. And it just shows you so much about who your target market is. Are you getting the right people to your site? How are they getting there? What search terms are they using to get there? So really, since most people have an existing web presence, another first step is to find out exactly what's going on with that website with great analytics.
Yeah, even if you have a current website and you feel like it's a terrible site and you need to change it, the stats on that old website could be very valuable.
And that's like user testing itself. That's like user testing with the hundreds and hundreds of people who visit your site every day.
what would you suggest if it's somebody who's coming right into the market? They've never had a web presence before. What would you suggest as far as strategy is concerned? Because obviously they don't have a current website to do user testing. They could build, but that would also go into the design and development and then jump back into strategy to do user testing on
Well,
that.
the website follows the strategy of your business in general. And I've said this before, your website is like an online business plan. It's like you write a business plan and you put it out there visually and graphically and with links and so forth. And so even if you're starting a brand new business, you have to have a business plan, and the website will model that.
And the beauty of the web is, even started from scratch, there's 20 guys that are already doing the exact same thing. And it's really easy to find the successful ones and kind of mimic what they did to become successful on the web.
Okay. Well, in design and development, I really see that, and I'm sure you probably agree, that there's some instant concerns that come in, especially when you're dealing with medium to large size businesses. You have 3 different departments. You have marketing, you have the software engineers that are developing all the back end software and doing the programming, and then you have the graphic designers. And you kind of have 3 different people with 3 different agendas, or 3 different departments with 3 different agendas. How does all that work in together with design and development?
We get a lot of we just want you guys to help us with the marketing of our website. We don't want to take the trouble of a redesign, because everybody sees a redesign as this massive project. And more, we have to kind of put our foot down and say, there are some things about this site that have to change immediately. And you shouldn't have to think about design as a complete restructuring. You can put a decent tagline there and a nav bar that people can read, and that'll make a huge difference immediately. So minor design changes should happen as a part of your initial strategy.
Yeah, and the strategy itself is like the blueprint for the design. One of the mistakes that's made on the web in the areas that you mentioned between design and developers is that they are leading the process. The design person or the technology person leads the process. They shouldn't be leading the process. What leads the process is your written and planned out strategy.
And what your customers want. Designers create sites without ever even talking to a customer.
I did a presentation recently, and I told one of the CEOs in the group, I said, you shouldn't have to argue with design people about what goes on your website. If you know your business and you know what users want, they follow your lead. And that's a big mistake on the web. There are many, many websites that were built by either designers with high-end graphics or with technology people, that are just had to lead the process because no one else knew how to do it.
But Tom, a website has to look pretty and it has to do a lot of stuff.
That's right.
And it has to use an 8-point font in gray.
Well, there's what we were doing, and this is a constantly evolving process for us. Is we're looking at ranking websites on their actual design and development effectiveness, and we're going to get to the point where we actually have a stamp of approval. And if you follow the criteria that we lay out, we'll give it a stamp of approval and say this is an approved Intuitive Websites design. Because it's meeting the needs of users, it's nice to look at, and it's easy to use, and it has great information.
Well, speaking of users, let's talk about navigation, because obviously that's usually the simplest thing that gets messed up right out of the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing better than having intuitive navigation on a website where you say, I want to find this, and you don't even have to think about it, and boom, a couple clicks, and there it is.
And the nav bar is the one thing that users will absolutely read. It's the table of contents at the bookstore. It's the thing that guides them into your site.
How many people look at sitemaps?
No, we don't see a lot of clicks on sitemaps. In user testing, people say it's a nice to have. If you ask them about it, no one's going to say, "Oh, I never look at it." But when you look at stats, Dennis, how often have we seen sites where the sitemap even gets anything of?
Well, the reason you have a sitemap nowadays is so the search engine spiders know where to go to index the entire site. That's really the function of a sitemap these days.
Right, because you want what we recommend in our stamp of approval. What it's going to say is basically you have one central navigation system with a very intuitive and easy to read second level of navigation if needed, and you really shouldn't go any deeper than that. If you go to a third level, it might be because you have some areas that just need more content. But no one should ever get lost on your website. They shouldn't have to click on the back button. The navigation system should always be there for them in plain sight.
Even in highly technical websites with a ton of information, that information should be gradually accessed through a first level and a second level. And if there's a whole bunch more information, make it a PDF or make it something that is just designed just for that heavy-duty information.
Yeah, the key thing, too, with design issues, and we're seeing this more and more, is the use of clip art on the web. If you go look at say, 10 websites, pull them up at random, I would bet that 8 of those 10 websites are going to have clip art, which is basically purchased photography of a lot of times women with headsets on. One of the most common things you see.
They're smiling.
They're smiling. Well, what we're getting to with photography on a website is that photography needs to either be of your staff, your clients, or people that are close to you in your business, and it should have a caption. Or if you're going to use clip art, connect that clip art to what the mission of your business is about. So don't just randomly put images up there because they look good. Put images up there that tell your story, and then put a caption there so that people can say, oh, not only I can see the story and I can see the caption, it relates to me. We did some work for a website, and you should go look at it, sandestin.com. It's got a great use of visual imagery.
How do you spell that, Tom?
SANDESTIN.com. Pretty much like it sounds, sandestin.com.
And they could probably find that on our resources page for the podcast as well.
That's right. And if you go to this website, you'll see how they use visual images to tell a story about their resort. And it's beautiful. Now, one thing they needed to do, which would really help, is they needed to put a little line in there that said actual photos of the resort. Because the photos are so well done, they almost look like clip art.
And
so just what we were talking about.
There's so much clip art that everybody assumes that everything is clip art.
And people will assume it's clip art. We worked for a local home builder with a photo of Pikes Peak and a house in front of it. And users told us in testing, well, we don't know if that's, really the area. It could be anything.
Fakey view, they thought
But
it
if
was.
they had a tag, they could
Fakey
say, here's the house that was built by this builder.
Actual photo from the Cordera development. Actual photo of the Sandestin beach. That sort of thing. And you can still use the taglines that say things like, at our resort, we have great escapes, and then show the wonderful ocean. But people really will, they'll tie your messaging into clip art, and it'll be great for the design components.
So really spend the money on custom photography that is specific to your website or your business.
Absolutely. And take the time to write taglines that tell your story and are action focused. Okay? The writing taglines, we just did a newsletter on taglines. Highly recommend you read that because it tells you what taglines can do. The minute you read what a poor tagline is versus a good one, you'll see what we're talking about.
And they can't be nuanced, and they can't be clever ad agency taglines. They have to tell you exactly what the site does. That's right. In a glance.
You know, something I'm dying to find out is what is your feeling on phone numbers? Where should they be?
Oh, in the design and development. Well, yeah, phone numbers are critical. We want phone numbers on every page. Depending on the kind of business you're in, you might want to see a phone number right there in the banner, right there next to the logo. Why make it difficult for people to find your phone number? You can integrate it into design in a very professional way and make it easy for people to contact you and of course, make it a dedicated phone number so you can track the results of your marketing.
That's critical because your phone number is going to be 50% of your web conversions, and you won't know it unless you have a dedicated 800 number.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I find on the web is people want to direct you to a contact page to be able to get a hold of them. And when you go to the contact page, a lot of times there's not even a phone number. There's a form to fill out.
Absolutely. And you want several forms or different ways to contact you, not just the form, but email, phone numbers, and even directions to your location. Some people go to your website and decide to drive to your office and visit you. So you want to have all those things there.
And they all have to be trackable. Every conversion.
As much as possible, because you'll put money into driving traffic. Now, we've prepared an outline for this 4-step process, and it'll cover steps 1 and 2. And that's going to be in the resources section of this podcast. So go take a look at that. It'll be a PDF you can print out and spend more time with.
So each of the 4 steps has multiple sub-steps. And really, it's just a roadmap for creating an intuitive website.
So, and make sure one of the biggest things, and I'm sure you'll reiterate this as well, is as soon as you have a new design, a new developed website, make sure you do user testing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You want to go in and research, again, the work you've done. And it's a constant, ongoing process. The website's always under construction. It's always being improved.
Well, you heard it, folks. What would you say our action item should be?
Well, I want to say one more thing before we cut out. The resources and the 4-step process PDF will be available at intuitiveblog.com attached to this podcast.
So not Intuitive Websites, intuitiveblog.com.
Correct.
Absolutely. Attached to the podcast as a resource. Well, I would say that your first action item is going to be to print out this information and to go back to our website and read and learn about these 4 steps. And I think that once the understanding is there, depending on where you are in your website marketing process, it's going to be taking a look at that strategy, starting with the strategic plan. If you can accomplish those things, that's a great start.
Well, folks, print it out at intuitiveblog.com. And remember, this has been an Intuitive Websites podcast. And to hear all the rest of the podcasts and much, much more, visit intuitivewebsites.com.